Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to CAMP, welcome to Center for Architecture and Metropolitan Planning, and welcome to another edition of Urban Talks. Today, we have a special guest from Canada. We will see the presentation and we will have a chance to ask questions. Canadian urbanist Gil Peñalosa, and we will talk about cities, about transportation, about quality of urban environment, etc., etc. As you know, you will be able to ask questions, you will be able to raise your hand and we will pass you a microphone, or you can use Slido, slido.com. If you will use that website on your phone, you will be able to use a simple form and write your question there and we will answer it. So now, please, I will ask you for a warm welcome for Gil Peñalosa.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time, and we are looking for your presentation.
Thanks. How do we want to live? That is the key question. Because more than designing cities, what we're doing is designing and building a way of life. If we want children to walk to school, we need to do small schools so that the catchment area is small. But if we do gigantic schools, it's going to be drive-to schools. So we are designing and building the neighborhoods. So again, how do we want to live? Because more than designing the cities, we're really designing a way of life. How do we get to places? What do we have close by? What is the proximity? What are the neighborhoods where we are going to live? Maybe we should be doing neighborhood cities. Because the neighborhood is also a way of life. It's very different, the life based on the neighborhoods. You see it here in Prague, if you are downtown, if you are outside, if you're in the middle. And we need to decide how we want to live, because we can choose one or the other. And, you know, just a few years ago, COVID arrived. And when COVID arrived, people said that all change. I think more than all change is our perception change. It was as if we had gotten some magnifying glasses to look at the cities. And then all of a sudden, we have been told that the quality of air was bad, but we didn't know how bad because we were breathing that air since we were born. And then they say, hey, stay home for a few days. And then this happened. The quality of air went from this into this. All over the world, not one city, not two cities, every city, the quality of the air improved. So we quickly saw how to have clean air. It was almost as if God had sent us a magic wand and said, you want clean air? This is how you have clean air. And that's why we need to decide, how do we want to live? Having clean air is not a technical issue. It's a political issue. Do we want to go to Milano and see this city like this, or do we want to go to Milano and see this other city? We have seen what is possible. We told people, hey, go to the parks, but be physically distanced. But there were not enough parks. So then we remember that the streets are public space. They belong to everybody. And we went into the streets, and it was so nice. This is Auckland, California. I mean, Auckland, New Zealand. This is Auckland, California. Look at this. In one day, the mayor said, tomorrow, all of the neighborhood streets, 115 kilometers, are going to be slow. What is a slow street? It's a street where only the people that live in the neighborhood go use it. Now, you are going on the big arterials. There's a traffic jam, and people go through the neighborhood. They say, no. Now it's only for the people that live in the neighborhood. And now children were playing, people with disabilities, no noise, better air. And it was done in 24 hours. It's now they did a survey. Do you want to go back? 90% said, no. You know, we've had 2 years of local traffic, clean air, less noise, and safe. But this can be done in Prague in any neighborhood. Why not? This mayor, she did it in 24 hours. Everything that I want to tell you today, everything is not a technical issue. It's not financial issue. It's political, about policy. with fewer cars, some people wanted to ride bicycles. And it used to take 10, 15, 20 years of fighting and fighting to get a bike lane. Well, now it wasn't 10 or 15 years, but 10 or 15 days. Look, this is London. They did it all over the place, and then Tirana and Berlin, and this is Paris. So it's completely doable. It wasn't the money. It wasn't a technical issue. It wasn't so much consultation. It doesn't have to take decades. It can take just days. We went at a bus-only lanes, and we got paint, and we started painting, and then we got a bus-only lane. Some people, for example, didn't have enough parks. This is San Francisco, a golf course. You know, in a golf course, you can have at most 220 people playing in one day. And the mayor said, you know, this golf course, as of tomorrow, is going to be a park. And instead of 220 people, you're going to have thousands and thousands and thousands of people playing. So if a city that, even without COVID, if a city doesn't have enough green spaces, large green spaces, or doesn't have enough housing, we should think, should we have so much space for 220 people? So we think that we got to think is if we were able to do it during COVID, why not post-COVID? Are we going to go back to 2019 or we look at new future in 2024? The impossible is impossible, and we were so excited that because we saw this as an opportunity to really get a lot of things moving faster, but also a huge responsibility. That's why we need to decide, how do we want to live? I've been very fortunate that since I'm from Colombia, but I've been living in Canada for 25 years, and in the last 25 years, I've worked in over 350 cities all over the world, big and small, and rich and poor. And everywhere I go, people say, oh, Gil, what's 880 cities? Well, 880 cities is really not about walking or cycling. It's not about parks or streets. Those are the means, not the end. The end is how can we help create successful cities. And I like to see the venue. Like, I took a train today from Bratislava here, and I came 3 hours ago to look at the venue. So I was going to speak in Warsaw, in an outdoor place. And I went to see it, and I see all of these people dancing. And I said, oh, tomorrow, same time I'm going to be speaking. Very complicated. And then I saw the DJ Vika. You know, she owns the music equipment and goes from park to park, from city to city, organizing dances. By the way, people over 60 are the ones that create the most amount of business in most places in the world. In the US, by far, the 60 to 70, they want to create the most business. The second is the 50 to 60. But anyway, back to 880. So 880 is about that. It's about creating healthy communities where everybody, the baby and the mom and the grandparents and children, where everybody's going to be able to live happier. And people say, Gil, can my children walk to school? Can my grandparents ride their bike to get eggs or milk? Can they walk to take public transit? I say, look, it's the rule of common sense. But common sense seems to be the least common of the senses. Step number one, think of a child around 8 years old that you love. Can be your son, your daughter, your grandchild, anyone around 8 years old. And when you have the kid around 8 years old in your mind, think of someone around 80 that you love. Can be your parents, your grandparents, your brothers, your sisters, former professors. And when you have the child and the older adult, then go to step number 3. Would you send them across that intersection to go to the park? Would you send them riding a bike or walking to school? Would they feel safe? If you would, it's because it's safe enough. If you would not, it's because it's not, and we got to do it better. I mean, what if everything that you did in Prague, everything, the sidewalk, the crosswalk, the school, the center, the restaurants, the buildings, everything had to be great for an 8 and an 80-year-old. Not 8 to 80, 8 and 80-year-old. Then it would be good for everybody from 0 to over 100. We need to stop building cities as if everybody was 30-year-old and athletic and create cities for everyone. That is the concept of the 880 cities for everyone, where everyone will be able to live healthier and happier. But before living in Canada, I lived in Bogota. Let me tell you a little bit about Bogota. It's the capital of Colombia in the northern tip of South America. And when I became commissioner, I had like 50 priorities. I wanted to do so many things all over the city. And then someone that I admire very, very much said, hey, Gil, come here. If you have 50 priorities, you have no priorities. You gotta think of priorities that you are gonna think about and do something about every single day, 365 days of the year. So then I downsized to 3 priorities. Other things were important that maybe I would think about every week or every month, but these 3 was every single day. The Simon Bolivar Park, the open street Ciclovia, and one internal. The Simon Bolivar Park, of course, we also did and led the construction of over 200 parks all over the city, small and big and large and whatever. This was the Simon Bolivar Park. The Pope had come here, gave a mass for 1 million people, and then the Pope left, and nothing happened. Nothing happened in 27 years. Why nothing happened in 27 years? Because change is hard. Change is hard in Prague, and in Bogota, and in Copenhagen, and in Paris. Everywhere change is hard. Because you try to change, and the cave people show up. You know them because they're also in Prague, the cave people. They are the citizens against virtually everything. You want to do anything, and they show up. But that's why you cannot take no for an answer. You got to find that little crack through the window and run through it. You got to find solutions to the problems because there are too many people that are finding problems to the solutions. So it was like this for 27 years, and in 4 years, we turned it into the best park for active, for passive, for contemplative recreation, for people of all ages to do active or maybe just to do contemplative recreation, things to do with thousands of people or things that maybe you just want to do with a friend or two. And I'll talk more about the park, but this is an amazing, and 25 years later, this is still probably the nicest park in the country, right in the heart of the city. And it's quite nice. After I was commissioner in the following term, one of my brothers was elected mayor, and I tell him maybe I was a good commissioner, that's why you were elected. And he built a library in one of the corners of this park, amazing. He built 4 mega libraries. This was one of them, with some of the finest architects, beautiful. A library free for everybody to be totally interconnected with the world. The other 3 libraries were in the slums, equally beautiful, equally nice, but right in the middle of the slums. I'll talk about some of those projects towards the end. But also, I wasn't just focusing on this large park, but also hundreds of little ones. Hundreds of little ones in very poor areas. You see the streets, most of them, they don't even have pavement. And people say, Gil, why are you doing so many parks when the poor people have so many needs? I said, look, when the poor people feel miserable, it's in the leisure time. The president of a corporation or the minimum wage worker cleaning floors have a similar experience. Maybe even the president has more anxiety. But in the leisure time, the president has a gigantic house, has country clubs and theater and restaurants and travels and all kinds of things. The minimum wage worker doesn't. So the low-income areas need better parks and better sidewalks and better bikes, better everything that is public. But we really need to focus to have the best parks and the best activities in the low-income areas. That's why I made such an emphasis in those. And then I also found a program. It was very small. It had a few kilometers and a few thousands people doing it. Ciclovia in North America, we call it Open Streets. And we turned it into the world's largest pop-up park. It's amazing. It's simple. You can do it in Prague. You open the streets to people, you close them to cars, and the magic happens. People of all ages and abilities. I was obsessed with connecting. This is by income level. I wanted to connect the wealthiest neighborhoods with the poorest neighborhoods and the whole city. That's why I went from a few kilometers to 121 kilometers. The whole city interconnected. Every Sunday of the year between 7 and 2. You can do it every Sunday. Maybe you don't do it in the wintertime. That's fine. You can do it every Sunday from May to September or to October. Interconnecting. We interconnected all of the parks. And it's nice because, you know, this is not just about cycling. Some people walk, some people bike, some people run, skate, chat, socialize. But more than anything, people enjoy the presence of each other. That is what is powerful. people enjoying the presence of each other without even knowing. It's like a totally joyful moment surrounded by millions. I mean, we get about 1.5 million people every Sunday. And it's, people could walk around their neighborhood. Why do they go to these 121 kilometers? Because they want to be with other people. Humans, we're animals, social animals. We want to be with others. We go to a restaurant, we open the door, it's empty, oh, we go out, we go to another one. We want to be with other people. And this is young and old and rich and poor. 1 out of 5 people come out every Sunday of the year. This is 100% urban health. Why is this important? Because it changes minds. All of a sudden, everybody understands that the streets are public space, and they can have different uses according to the time of the day of the week of the year. It's about social integration also, integrating ethnicities and races and ages. And if some people might not want to do it in Prague because they say, oh, Delhi is doing it. When I started promoting in India, they were no, now there's like 50 cities. They say, oh, but we don't want to be like Delhi or like Bogota. Well, we meet each other as equals, and Paris does it. Every Sunday, even during the winter, Paris does it. It's low cost. All you really need is people and streets. So if you have people and streets, you can do it. It's low risk. You are not building arenas, gymnasiums. No, you are using the streets. So the funding is very small. And the benefits, oh my God, they are amazing. Mental and physical health, economic development, environment, happiness, equity. I mean, now hundreds of cities are doing it. Let me show you a few of them. Bicycle, bicycle, bicycle. I want to ride. No, keep it loud, it's fine. Bicycle, bicycle. I want to ride my bicycle. I want to ride my bike. I want to ride my bicycle. I want to ride it where I like. You say black, I say white. You say bar, I say bite. You say shark, I say him. And Jaws was never my scene, and I don't like Star Wars. You say Rose, I say Royce. You say God, give me a choice. You say Lord, I say Christ. I don't believe in Peter Pan, Frankenstein, or Superman. All I wanna do is ride. I want to ride my bicycle, bicycle, bicycle. I want to ride my bicycle. I want to ride my bike. I want to ride my bicycle. I want to ride my. So you see, I mean, you can do it. I mean, Bogota's doing it. Hundreds of cities are doing. Why not Prague? By the way, I put a few images of Tirana to pick your brain a little bit to say, hey, if Tirana's doing it. When I told this about the mayor of Tirana, who's amazing, Arion Veliak, within 30 days, they were doing it in Tirana. You don't need a special infrastructure. Why am I talking about Bogota? Because Bogota is much poorer. It's decades behind Prague. I'm not saying that it's even in the same league. It's decades behind. But it's to show that it's not a technical issue and it's not a financial issue. By the way, this is a message that I want you to keep very, very clear. Prague is good, but not great. Good can be great. One of the things that you need to do is benchmark with the best. Because, of course, Prague is very good. If you want cities that are worse than Prague, you go to Google and in 10 minutes you have 1,000 cities that are worse. But if you compare yourself, you benchmark with cities that are worse, you're going to look like those. No, you got to say is, okay, which cities? Now you have artificial intelligence. Ask AI. Which cities of similar size and income to Prague, which have the best quality of life for children, for older adults, the best tree canopy, the best walkability, the most joyful psychability, whatever. And then benchmark with those. For example, you're going to do cycling, benchmark with Paris. Paris, the mayor of Paris 5 years ago said everyone in Paris is going to have a protected bike lane within 1 kilometer. So they are doing every 2 kilometers. So you go 1 kilometer that way or 1 kilometer, and you find a protected bike. She's done it in 5 years. What does Paris have that you don't have? Nothing. So that's why I showed Bogota. But now I want to talk about Prague. And I want to take you through 8 actions. And the first one is developing a shared vision. But before we go to the shared vision, anybody has any question from what we have seen? Or any comment? We're going to be here 2 hours. So then I thought that it would be good to, once in a while, say, you have any questions? Or comments? Or should I go on? Yes. Is there a microphone? Yeah. Look, this place is amazing. They fixed my mistakes.
Hi, thank you. How do you approach the cave people?
Excuse me?
How do you approach the cave people?
How do I approach the cave people? That's in this last part of the talk.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you.
If I don't respond your question, ask it again, because that is probably the most important. I'm going to ask that at the end, because that is the most. How to get cave people an elected. By the way, cave people are very few. Very, very few, except that they're very loud. So then you have a public meeting, and almost no one shows up. But there are 4 cave people, and they show up, and they make a lot of noise. And then the media goes and asks the 3 or 4 guys, and then the next day on the newspaper says, the community is against the bike lanes, or the community is against the trees, or the community is against the parks. Who's the community? It was 3 loud mouths. So when they said that the squeaky wheel gets the oil, yeah, that's the problem. The squeaky wheel gets the oil. So I'll tell you a little bit more afterwards. One is that they're very small. So what do we need to do? Show up, show up. If you go to the public meeting and there are 3 or 4 loud mouths, a cave, but there's 20 non-cave, then things happen. You know what happens is that you do a public meeting and only the people that are against show up. Why? Because some people don't know if that park is going to benefit. So they say, I don't really know. Other people think it's going to benefit, but they say, oh, it's going to happen anyway. I don't need to show up. Others say it's not going to happen anyway, so I don't need to show up. So the only ones that show up are those cave. So half of the answer is show up, show up. We need to show up. This is not a time for citizens to be spectators. We need to show up. Yes.
You said that Prague is good but not great. What do you think that the biggest disadvantage or weakness in Prague?
What is a weakness?
Yes, in Prague.
I don't know. I don't want to have my host look bad because they are the ones who told me. But at the end, I'm going to ask you to tell me how to improve. Well, cycling is very bad. 2% of the people bike. In some neighborhoods, maybe 8%, but in city-wide, maybe 2%. So, for example.
That's great.
But I don't know enough about Prague. I was just a little bit putting your leg, a little bit saying, hey, you know. Because sometimes one of the problems when you have nice cities like Prague is that you develop a sense of complacency. So people say, oh, no, we're great. We have nothing to do. We're already fantastic. And then people don't want to change. So sometimes it's good to tell people, hey, you are good, but you are far from great. Like if there is a magazine that is going to give you an award, that is going to say, hey, Prague is the best city in the world, tell them, oh, please, don't say that. Say that we are the 124th, because then people will want to improve. But if they say, oh, no, you are the best or the second best, then, okay. So let me tell you about a shared vision. Shared vision is part of that. Shared vision is, how do you want Prague to be 10 years, 20, 30 years from now? Maybe an indicator that might tell us about is a good city is a city where a child on a tricycle or a person on a wheelchair can safely and joyfully go anywhere. I don't know if everybody in Prague on a tricycle or a wheelchair can safely go anywhere. I mean, people used to go, but in most cities in the world, they don't anymore. And even they might be joyful, but it's not safe anymore. That's why the how do we want to live is so important. I mean, because without vision, we have chaos. Chaos. We don't know what we're going to do. So we need to develop that shared vision. I mean, a shared vision is like the image on a puzzle. You are going to do a puzzle, you need the vision on the puzzle. So you say, okay, this is how we see Prague 20 years from now. Then it doesn't matter which piece of the puzzle you are doing it, as long as they are pieces of the same puzzle. You get chaos is when you are doing pieces of multiple puzzles, then you're doing a Frankenstein. But vision is not enough. You need to have action, action. Because some cities have the vision, but no action, so they become frustrated. They know what needs to be done, but they don't do it. Others have action, but no vision. So they are doing all over the place. That's the Frankenstein. But if you develop a shared vision and lots of action, you can really transform Prague into the shared vision that you want. And also, when you have a shared vision, you can move faster. You can, because too many cities are, like ready, aim, fire, except that too many cities are ready, aim, 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 aim. They never fire. They do a study, and 5 years later, another study, and then another study. And they keep doing studies, and no, do it. If you more or less know where you are going, what is your vision, do, because time is, so you gotta have ready, fire, aim. And a lot of this is about urban health. You're in the cities. Something interesting about the cities is that in the cities, the healthiest people live in cities, but also the unhealthiest people live in cities. And when I'm talking about urban health, I think there are 3 pillars of the effect of the environment on people's health. One of the pillars is the social, another the natural, and another one the built environment, and how they interrelate. Let me give you an example. I live in Toronto. We have 28% tree canopy. But where the wealthy people live is over 50% tree canopy. Where the low-income people live is less than 10%. So having tree canopy is natural. This inequity of tree canopy is social. And the built environment about fixing it. So how do they interrelate? So we have an opportunity, but also responsibility, because the population is leveling off. And in many places, the population is already decreasing. For many, many years, in the last 100 years, it was always growing. That was a huge problem until it stopped growing. Now it's growing for the next 40 years. Like it's going to level at around 9.7 billion in 40 years. But it's going to grow only because in some countries, especially Africa, there are more children and youth. So it will continue. But in about 40 years, it's going to stabilize. Already, most of the so-called developed countries, already the population is decreasing. We see everywhere, the US and Germany, and Russia and China. This is the population. Many more people are dying than births, and this is in 2100. Even China's going to lose like 400 million people. So whatever we do or don't do in the cities now is how cities are going to be for hundreds and hundreds of years. That's why this is also so critical. And also, Prague can be an excellent example to many of the cities in Africa. There are many cities in Africa, like almost all of the sub-Sahara in Africa. Today, they have about 8% of the homes that will exist in 50 years from now. Almost nothing. Like, they're going to grow by 9 times over the next 50 years. What a wonderful possibility to do it so much nicer than the cities that we have been doing in the last 60 years. They could be perfect. They could come to Prague and Paris and Copenhagen and everybody and learn. Say, okay, we got to have parks every so often. We got to have networks of walking and cycling and all of this. And maybe you can also help. And all of you, this is the Center of Architecture and Planning. Maybe you can also do alliances and help a lot of other cities. And everything I'm talking about today also is equally applicable to cities of 50,000 people or 1 million of 10 million. Actually, even the city of 10 million, think of it as 200 neighborhoods of 50,000 each. The issues are similar. We're living longer in the cities of 50,000 and we're living longer in the cities of 10 million. So if we think of the city of 10 million as 200 neighborhoods, then another revolution that is happening post-COVID, okay, another thing that is happening that the small cities got a new lease on life, which is very, very interesting because small cities were disappearing all over the world. Part of it is because most cities are bad. There's a comedian in the US called Bill Maher, and he said, oh, you know why small cities are small? He said, because no one wants to live there. It's a bad joke, but partly he's right. Small cities are not good or bad because they are small. Small doesn't make them anything. Small cities almost should think of them as a 15-minute city. How can that small city also be walkable and bikeable and have trees and have activities and activate the winter time and so on? But also now, I would not live in a small city 2 hours from Prague if I had to commute every day. But if I have to commute once a week, maybe. So small cities, if they're really nice, they got a new lease on life, which is interesting. I mean, where people live, what we're doing is where people are going to live, billions of people over hundreds and hundreds of years. So how cities are built now is the most important decision of our time. I think there is nothing more important for camp. I think you're really privileged at camp because everything, not only in Prague, but everywhere around the world, it just happened. It didn't happen 200, 300, 500 years ago. It might not happen 100, 200. But now we're at that moment that all of these cities are starting to decrease the population. The others that are growing also are stop the growth. Second message, let's build cities for people. And some of you might say, obvious, cities for people. Well, it's not so obvious. In the last 100 years, this is how we've been building cities. And by the way, even in these cities, segregating the poor people to the worst places, no jobs, no mobility. And obviously, it's not the same living in those neighborhoods than living in these neighborhoods. Look, this is the wealthiest country in the world by postal code. The wealthiest country, the US, 3 cities. It's almost by neighborhoods, the postal code. The neighborhoods that are in dark red, the life expectancy is 60. In the light pink is 90. I mean, how can we even accept as normal that if you are born in one neighborhood, your life expectancy is going to be 60. If you are born 10 minutes away, it's 90. It's almost like if we're 2 different continents, 2 different planets. And by the way, the people that live to 60, you go there, and those neighborhoods are horrible. It's when the life expectancy is 90, it's like Switzerland. Where the life expectancy is 60 is like Syria. You go there are no parks and no activities and gangs and killings and drugs. And even if you want to eat healthy, you cannot buy healthy because there is food deserts. This is 2024. How can we accept that? I mean, we've been focusing on car, and not on people's happiness. This is how we've been doing cities. Investing billions and billions and billions in highways, and we haven't even solved mobility. This is Florence and one highway intersection at the same scale. It seems like we had learned how to do cities, and then we unlearned. Maybe when the car arrived, we should have said, hey, wait a minute. What are we going to do with this car? Maybe we need to develop a network for cars and another network for people walking and cycling. But no, we said, oh, this is new, it's technology, wonderful, let's do it. And then instead of doing those networks, we started doing things. I mean, sometimes people thought they were right, but we were doing things right, but not the right things. Look, cities over cities all over the place. Imagine these cities. How did children go to school? They walked. How did grandparents get eggs? And they walked. And then they destroyed them. Not 1 or 2, thousands of cities. Thousands and thousands of cities. This is what happened to all of the cities in North America and many others around the world. And what was happening in North America, most emerging countries loved it and said, oh, if North America wants highways, we must do highways. All of the cities 120 years ago were 15-minute cities. I mean, the cities, they don't decide the what. The what, how much population more the national level, but the cities do decide the how. This is how we're still doing cities. Look, imagine, no parks, no trees. This is social housing. Where is the dignity? Instead of parks, we are doing parking lots. You know, in the US, there's a parking lot, 11 parking lots per person. In Houston, there's 21 parking lots per person. It's imagine a little kid or someone with disabilities. So the reality is the last 40 years have been bad, or 80 years. They have not been very good. And when I say they've been not very good, some people complain, well, most of the neighborhoods built in the last 80 years, most of them, not all, but most, are not good for physical or mental health, are not good for quality of air, for water, for climate change, for economic development. So how can we say that they've been good? Sometimes I go to the cities and they say, oh, Gil, we got to tell you to our old town. I say, well, you had nothing to do with the old town. If anything, your only credit is that you didn't mess it up. But all of the new developments that you see in North America, in the US and Canada, Australia, and many other countries, I mean, we learn how to survive, but now we need to learn how to live. We need to improve the cities that we have today, but also we need to manage cities radically different. For example, I was in Bratislava yesterday talking about cities for children. Let's create cities for children, because if cities are good for children, they're good for everyone. I mean, we are improving the parks. I was in China. I love this. My grandchild would love it. And you don't even need to have plastic or anything. I mean, we have improved the parks for children. We haven't improved much how to get to the park, walking. And we know that if the kids, the children, we have all of the data. This is not a technical issue. We know if they're physically active, it's going to be good for everything, long-term health and hearts and lungs and brain and everything. Imagine Prague, that you decided Prague is going to be the most playful city in the world, where you go out on the sidewalk and there is a swing. You are waiting for the tram and there is a small parquet. And you have bus stops that are different, and you just put a little bit of paint, and it's a little bit creativity. Yes, but put crosswalks with paint and colorful. It's not an issue of money, and you can do it, and look how happy these children are. You don't even have to ask them. You see it on their face how happy she is. And people say, wow, nice, it's fun and games. Fun and games is very, very important, even though some people undervalue. But it's even more than fun and games, because playing is how children learn. Playing is how children develop their muscle strength, their sociability, their coordination, their sense of belonging, their cognitive thinking. That's why we gotta have cities for children. That reminds me some of the children's tales. You know, the wolf. For hundreds and hundreds of years, for centuries, children were terrified of the wolf. The nightmares were around the wolf. Le Petit Chaperon Rouge from 1697. Look at that wolf. Oh, we all get scared from that wolf. And then the Grimm brothers took it another step 100 years later into the Little Red Riding Hood. The wolf was what was most scary for children. And then I think, who are today's wolves? These are today's wolves. There is almost nothing that scares a child as much as when you say, hey, a car is coming. They jump frightened. It's, you know, in the last 18 years, one of them has killed 26 people. The other one has killed 23 million people. 1.3 million every year. This is World Health Organization data. 1.3 million per year. Obviously, wolves and these trucks should not be allowed in any city. I mean, if we want to have cities for children, we must control. We must limit the size and the speed of cars everywhere. Otherwise, you are just talking blah, 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 blah. If you want Prague to be a city for children, this is a must. There are many things that you can say yes or no or no. On this, there is no doubt about this. And of course, we got to also create cities for elders. And like they say, you know, if cities are good for children, they're good for everyone. Well, change children for elders. It's the same. It's not the same for the 20 to 60. A city that is good for 20 to 60 might not be good for the 8 or the 80. So we need to be very, very careful and not create Disney walls for the 20 to 60 healthy and wealthy, but create cities for everyone. I was working in Bratislava the last 3 days, and even the mayor was not very happy when I did a presentation. I said, the old part of Bratislava that is all pedestrian, really, really nice, I said, is a Disney world for the 20 to 60. And the mayor said, how do you know? He said, well, I came Saturday night. I spent Sunday running around and walking. And I said, look, here I got 50 photos of the downtown. Only of the 50 photos, in one you see a child. In 49, there are no children. I said, it was amazing for the 20 to 60. The coffee shops were full, the ice cream places full, the restaurants full, the plazas. But I was thinking, if I'm a child and my father said, oh, let's go have lunch at downtown, I would say, oh, no, please, no. How boring, what a boring place. I said, the good news is that you have the space to activate it, to animate it, to do activities, to put infrastructure. And talking about older people, let's keep in mind that we are going to double. We're going to double. In the past 130 years in Prague, you have doubled the life expectancy. Imagine that is almost unthinkable. Can you imagine after hundreds and hundreds of thousands of years, the life expectancy 130 years ago in Prague was 32, 33 years. Today is around 80. In only 130, maybe that's why we have not adjusted and have not. It's amazing what has happened around the world. And most of it is healthy years. I don't know why we have such a negative perception, because yeah, our body ages, but not our mind. And like Bernard Shaw said, we don't stop playing because we grow old. We grow old because we stop playing. And I like to change the word play for walking. We don't stop walking because we grow old. We grow old because we stop walking. I mean, if we view aging as a decline, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Let's fight ageism. Oh, don't do this because you are a child. Oh, don't talk about politics because you are young. Oh, you cannot work here because you are too old. No, ageism is dumb. I mean, aging is not a problem to solve or a disease to cure. Aging is living. We start aging since the day we were born. And we're living longer. Not longer, much, much, much longer. It's so nice. Imagine, I mean, when the life expectancy here was 33, most of the people in this room would be dead or close to. I would be dead, obviously. Imagine what has happened. It's incredible. And this is 1/3 of our life now. 1/3. The people that have ever lived to 60 in the history of humanity, half are alive today. This is really new. Half are alive. And people are gardening and eating ice creams and playing with their grandchildren in the park. And by the way, the people over 60 are going to double. The people over 80 are going to quadruple. And all of this is really good news. Maybe we got to have a conversation afterwards about what is your role. Because there's a huge opportunity and also a huge need. Because we do very, very little for older people. We say, oh, no, they are dying. No, people are very dependent in the last 2 or 3 years of their lives. But that's only 15% of our life as elders. People are very independent, over 80% of our life as older adults. People want to do activities. If people used to run marathons, now they run half. If they used to do 3 sets of tennis, now they play 2. If they used to walk 5 days a week, now, but they want to do activities. But they are very lonely. In the US, for example, the medical officer said that the #1 public health problem in the US today is loneliness. Loneliness at all ages, but most acute over 60. Over 60. I mean, the oldest are givers. They're not takers. I worked with the Botanical Garden in Phoenix, and they had 450 volunteers, all of them over 55. And they love it. They found kind of a new life. Now they have a purpose. They have a reason to wake up. They work 4 days a week. And then they said, oh, the other 3 days, I go hiking or I go shopping with people that I meet. And actually, I stay half an hour later having a coffee. And it's great for the people that are volunteering, but it's also great for the Botanical Garden because the Botanical Garden could never pay 450 people. So it becomes a win-win. I mean, older people are assets to the community, not liabilities. We got to change the conversation around elders because we have really added many, many, many years to our lives. But now we need to add life to those years. That's one of the things that you could really become a fantastic city in the world, a showcase. Because there's a huge need. I mean, why should you care about older people if you are 30? Well, because your parents and your grandparents, and if you are lucky, you are going to be older someday. So we got to be able to live older, healthier, happier. And by the way, no worries, you don't have to do this to live older, healthier, and happier. But we are in many ways with the older people just talking. It's like this frog. We are boiling ourselves to death around the issue of older people. We talk about it, but we don't do. So we got to live healthier. And not only the older people, but everybody should live healthier. 3, let's have playful cities. Why have playful cities? Because if you are good at anything, if you are a good architect, or a good planner, or a good teacher, or a good nurse, or a good anything, you are good at making coffee, or you are a good community organizer, you can live anywhere. Anywhere. Not anywhere in Europe, anywhere in the world. Let's keep in mind that a good city is a competitive advantage that cannot be copied. A bad city is very hard to fix. I think the main competition between cities and countries for the next 50, 100 years is for good people. Because the good people are the people that move. If I'm a really good cook, I say, oh, I want to go and I want to live in Australia. They say, oh, do you have a job? I say, oh, no, but I'll find one. The people that are good are confident. They go. If I'm not that good, I say, no, I'm not going to go because what if I don't find job? So it has to be a priority. Every day, the decision makers in Prague, public sector, private sector, NGOs should be thinking, why live in Prague? Why live in Prague? That's why quality of life is so important, because the cities used to be places to work, and they're becoming more and more places to live and to play. So we gotta make Prague really playful and fun, especially everything that is free should be great. The sidewalks and the plazas and the squares. That's why cities are transforming themselves. It's not because they don't have anything to do with the money. For example, open streets in New York is because they want to be fun. And also we got to have well-being. Of course, our priority has to be the most vulnerable people, everyone that is poor, everyone that has disabilities. And what is well-being? Well, it's simple. Turning around is being well. It's being well. So 5 actions for well-being. 1, we need to eat healthier, more green base. So we gotta have farmers markets in all of the neighborhoods. We gotta have allotment gardens in the schools, in the libraries. I'm not saying that everybody has to be vegetarian, but if all of us start eating half as much meat, the impact is as if half of us had become vegetarian. 2, we gotta sleep. We gotta sleep 8 hours a day. Sleep is one of the things that we don't do enough. And all of the studies show that we need to sleep. I mean, if we miss 1 hour of sleep, we have 20% less productivity. That's why most of the sports teams now have sleep specialists. Imagine you pay Messi $1 million per game, and if he doesn't sleep 1 hour, you're gonna lose part of that $1 million. There are so many books that show. Also because, for example, drowsy driving kills more people than alcohol and drugs combined. And sleeping is something that also benefits because it's democratic, it's powerful, it's free. 3, we need to socialize. Oh, it's so critical to socialize. I mean, what are the benefits of socializing? Increases our brain health, our mental and emotional health, our confidence and quality of life. And it also decreases blood pressure and risk of Alzheimer's. I mean, many people are concerned of dementia. There is no cure for dementia, but there is 3 things that delay dementia. 3 things. One of them is this, the number 3, is socializing. We need to socialize. And it's not knitting in the computer, it's knitting in the park. We need to organize groups in the parks. Programs. So if you are knitting and socializing and it's in nature, that brings me to the 4th, that also delays dementia, have contact with nature. We gotta have contact with nature everywhere, at home, on the sidewalks, on the streets. Look, this is the botanical garden where I was working in Arizona, amazing. And 5, we need to be physically active. Since the day we're born till our last day, we need to be physically active. I love their working in Hawaii. And then I mean, if we're physically active, it decreases premature death and strokes and cancer and osteoporosis and heart disease and blood pressure. I mean, it's incredible. And we don't need to do marathons. All we got to do is 30 minutes a day. But it has to be 5 or more days a week. 5 or more days a week. So there is an urgency to be physically active. Some people say, oh, I'm going to walk the dog. Okay, yeah, walk the dog. But this is not walking the dog. People want a magic pill. No, there are no magic pills. You know, the only way that Prague, the only way is going to be physically active, the only way is if people walk or bike as a normal part of everyday life. There is no other way. There is no city in the world, none, where large groups of people are active other than walking or cycling as a normal part of everyday life. So like when you promote bike lanes or networks of bikes, it's not about cycling. It's about mental and physical health. It's about all these benefits of physical activity. There is no other way. Walking or cycling as a normal part of everyday life. That's why we gotta promote and make it safe and make it enjoyable. So let's talk about walking. Who came walking today? 1, 2, 3. Everybody. Because every single trip begins at walking. We are all pedestrians. We walk. We walk to the bike, we walk to public transit, we walk to places. Everybody walks. Every trip begins and ends. Sometimes people that have cars say, oh, I'm not a walker, I'm a driver. No, how do you get to the car? At some point you get out of the car. I mean, walking and cycling is not a joke. This could be an amazing street anywhere in Prague. Walking and cycling is not a frivolity. This little girl knows it's not. Walking and cycling is the only individual mode of mobility of most people, of all children and youth around the world. So being safe and enjoyable should be almost like a human right. Unless you think that only the people who have the money and the age to have a car have their right to individual mobility. That's why we're talking about democracy and human rights and equality and sustainability, because all of this is synced. Look, the cities in the US are gigantic. And nevertheless, even in the US, half of the trips are less than 5 kilometers. I mean, why walk? That's how we were created. You know, the birds fly and the fish swims. But people, we walk. We walk. We walk in the middle of the winter. And maybe we're so happy because we're walking and we use all our senses. We're walking and we see the children playing and the youth going to school and we hear the birds singing. And we go by a coffee shop and we smell the aroma. Parents and children walk, older people walk. We walk in the summer, we walk in the winter. But let's make it safe. It's not safe. Some cities say, oh, we're Vision Zero. Vision Zero is saying people are not perfect, so let's do the engineering and the speed and everything so that no one will be killed on the streets, in cars or walking or transit or cycling, no one. But if you don't do the actions and you don't put the money, you are not a Vision Zero. You become, it's a zero vision. A zero vision. I mean, if we're going to improve walking, let's make in Prague all of the streets 30 kilometers an hour, all of them. Except the large ones. If you have 4 lanes, then it might be 40 or 50. But all the others, 30. Why 30? Because if you get hit by a car, by a driver, at 30, there's only 5% probability of being killed. At 50, it's more than 85%. So this is not a technical issue, it's a political. So if the politicians say, oh no, we want the street to be 50, okay, then more than 85% are gonna die. Oh no, I wanted 45. Yeah, do whatever you want, put it at whatever. But you need to realize that whatever speed you are putting, there's higher or lower probability of being killed. And there are many studies. Same thing in the US or England, they do miles, same thing, the 20 mile is the same 30K. All of the studies show that this is an issue of life or death, the speed. And of course, the size as well. Size and weight also matters. I mean, this truck has 50% more probability of killing you. So we gotta have the 30K and enforce it. We need to enforce it. I mean, Oslo did it. In Oslo, they have 4 years in a row with no deaths. But also, the Americans that say they are also different. Well, Hoboken, next to New York, they did it too. Now there are many cities that are going to zero, hundreds of cities. But we gotta decide people are first. People are not first when we put posts in the middle of the sidewalks. I was working in a city that the mayor said, Gil, we're putting lights on the sidewalks. I said, oh, how nice that you put lights on the sidewalks. But how not so nice that you are putting the post in the middle of the sidewalk. And then he took me to brand new sidewalks. Look at these sidewalks. They look like a roller coaster. Imagine with a little stroller, brand new sidewalks. Sidewalk has to be perfectly flat. If you want a ramp, do 20% ramp, 80% flat. Many streets don't even have a sidewalk. Toronto, I love Toronto. That's why I live there. But 24%, 1 out of 4 streets do not have a sidewalk. This is Toronto. It's shameful. I mean, the sidewalks are the most important infrastructure in any city. You know, when you are on the street, on bicycles, on cars, on public transit, you are going from point A to point B. Not on the sidewalks. On the sidewalks, you say, oh, I'm going to go for a coffee, and you take 40 minutes, 1 hour, you meet someone, you chat. The sidewalks is where we meet people meet boyfriends and girlfriends, and we meet the neighbors and the people selling flowers and fruits. And you go to any city, you leave your bags and you go out on the sidewalks and you develop a sense of belonging on the sidewalks. The sidewalks are really critical. It's almost part of the family of the parks. We need to have benches and lights and be flat and keep it really nice in the winter and clear the snow. And I mean, the sidewalks really is as important as any other thing. And doing road diets, and you go to the sidewalks and see 3 generations at the same time on the sidewalk. I mean, I love working in Buenos Aires because I see people dancing tango on the sidewalks. And also sustainable mobility. But sustainable mobility He's not just walking, he's also riding bicycles, using public transit, cars. For example, 3 generations on a bike. This could be ideal for Prague. Why not? I mean, if you want to improve bikeability in Prague, simple rule of thumb, if it's not safe for an 8 and an 80-year-old, it's nothing. It's nothing. Don't even call it a bike lane. It's just paint on a street. Some people say, oh, it's better than nothing. No, it's not better than nothing. Last month, I was working in Florida. Look at these highways, 50 miles, so it's like 75 kilometers. This one, 55 miles. Look at that bike lane in the middle of 55 miles, so like 85 kilometers an hour. I mean, we know what needs to be done. Professional cyclists go in between trucks, but the children are not going to go in between trucks. We got to make it safe for everyone. So let's make sure that those children is going to be safe everywhere. This is Copenhagen, but could be Prague. All of the sidewalks, they continue at level in all of the small streets. So when the cars are going to turn, the cars really slow down because they're going to go over a sidewalk, like a bump. They're going over the pedestrian area. This kid has his priorities, right? It's look, Tirana didn't have, when I started working with the mayor of Tirana, he didn't have 1 single inch of protected bikeway. In 4 years, he developed a complete network of protected bikeways in Tirana. Why can't he do it in Tirana and you cannot do it in Prague? I mean, what does Tirana have that you don't have? And then if the kids get really comfortable, then they grow up and they start biking and they go all over the place and it becomes a mode of mobility. Some days you want to use the public transit, other days you want to walk, other ways you're going to use. I mean, if we want more people cycling, there are only 2 things that increase. One is to lower the speed in the neighborhoods, and 2, to create a network of protected bikeways. So everything I said about 30K for walking is also for cycling. But a network of protected bikeways. What is AAA? AAA is for all ages and abilities. We need to have connectivity. If we don't connect, we're not going to use it. So it is don't talk about bike lanes. Don't ask government to do bike lanes. Ask people to do networks. And think of daytime and nighttime, and the people opening the doors. And even if they don't want to invest in nice permanent infrastructure, then don't just paint a line. Enhance the painted line with bollards every 2 meters. And then it's going to be a world of difference. Look what they're doing in Poland. They had this new pavement that is pigmented, that absorbs the sun during the day and lights up the bike lane at night. You know, people bike in Amsterdam because there's a whole network. There's connectivity. They bike in Copenhagen because there's connectivity. If you don't have connectivity, you are not going to be able to make it. It can be really, really nice. And by the way, and so sometimes people say, oh, but let's not do bike lanes because I don't see people cycling. Well, it's like the chicken or the egg. But here it's not complicated. If you don't have a network, you will not get high numbers of cycling if you don't have connectivity. And some people say, oh, but here in Prague we have too many hills. Well, first, now there are e-bikes that are fantastic for the hills. But also, a lot of Prague doesn't have hills. Why don't you start in the areas where there are very few hills? So you need infrastructure first, and then people are going to bike. Same thing with public transit. You need public transit. Like one of my brothers said, the civilized city is not the one where the poor have cars. It's the one where the rich use public transit. Sometimes it's marketing, the color and the name and the uniforms and the positioning. The mayor of Malmo told me his citizens didn't like the buses, so what did he do? He put a nose on the bus, he covered the wheels, and now they look like trains. Maybe that's what it takes. I mean, it's not a technical issue. We know the CO2 that walking and cycling and public transit is far better than any other mode. Also, how much space they take. Also, we know, for example, that I know you have a lot of trams. The trams are cute, but they don't carry too many people. We have in Toronto a lot of new ones. What happens? They break down, the whole line is out. If it was a bus instead of a tram, the other buses could go around. But anyway, you need to evaluate capital cost, capacity, and at the end of the day, it's about having speed, frequency, and connectivity, and affordability. If it doesn't have speed, frequency, and connectivity, and affordability, it doesn't click. And then, when cities say we have a problem of congestion, well, solve it. Rapid transit is not if the wheels are rubber or metal, it's if it has dedicated lanes. Not mixing that streetcar in the middle of the cars. It has to have dedicated lanes and prepaid and easy in and out. And also some people say, oh, but we don't have the physical space. When my brother was mayor doing the BRT, they said, oh, we don't have space in some areas for buses and for cars. So he said, well, if there's no place for buses or cars, that means that there is no space for cars. And then he put the buses and the rest of the area pedestrian. I mean, you're going to do the mobility math. Do you want one of these or 140 of those? One of these or 145 of those. I mean, walking, cycling, and transit takes up a lot less space. Of course, part of sustainable mobility is new uses of cars. Now we have cars that are hydrogen and are electric, and it's growing tremendously, and now we're going to have driverless cars. And people say, oh, driverless cars, we're going to have fewer cars. And they have all of these scenarios that with driverless cars, we're not going to have congestion. They forget that the congestion is not the driver, it's the car. So we need to have fewer cars, no matter what mode. We need to have fewer cars. Also, the cost of the cars, I don't know for Prague, but in North America, the cost of a car is 20% of the income of the family. 20%. It's huge. Cars are very, very, very expensive. Also, they take a lot of space. Look at those drive-thrus with full of cars. If you compare the 20% with walking, cycling, and transit, it's only 4%. Only 4%. So there is nothing that you can do to improve more the the finance of the family than being able to downsize from 2 cars to 1 or from 1 to 0. And what are they going to do if it's 20 goes down to 4%? What are they going to do with the 16%? Spend it in the local economy. Go to the restaurants, improve the house. It's going to be fantastic. And that's from the cash flow. From the capital point of view, people buy houses. And we have a huge housing crisis, and 20 or 30% of the houses are for the cars. People don't have houses, but the cars do have lots of houses. I mean, look at these streets. You just take out the cars, and it changes completely. And then you put some trees and things, and this is doable anywhere. Why don't we do it? So 6, let's talk about the neighborhood, street, and proximity. Okay, we got the last 3 on neighborhood city, and then on the question on the how to get the cave people. But any questions from what I have seen up to now? Questions or comments? No questions? I hope you are not getting bored. Okay, then we can have a dialogue at the end if there are no questions now. So let's talk about proximity. I think what people really are talking is about proximity. The 15-minute city on Paris, and the thing is all is new. Well, part of it is who's doing the walking? Who's doing the walking? So it's not really 15 minutes, because 15 minutes can be very different according to the person that are doing the walking. So it can they even say, oh, 15-minute walking or cycling. No. Is walking or is cycling? We walk at 5 kilometers an hour. We bike at 20 kilometers an hour. So 15 minutes cycling is a huge area. It's almost all of Prague, because it's 15 minutes that way or 15 minutes that way. So it's 30 minutes on bike is a lot. No, so it's walking. So it's 15-minute walking or 3 minutes cycling. But it's not 15 minutes walking or cycling. But regardless of the time, is by who? By who? So forget about 15 minutes. Think about proximity. I mean, just having most of the basic needs within walking distance, the school, the library, the restaurant, the grocery stores, the shops. I was working in Colorado a few months ago, and look at these gigantic parks. And then 2 weeks ago, I was working in Madrid, in Spain. Look at the stadium of Real Madrid, right in the middle of the city, no parking lot. Everybody uses public transit. Also, when you go to the downtown, like this is Chicago, where it's dense, the blue, very little impact on the environment. Sprawl is terrible for the environment to sprawl. Fortunately, some cities, this is Atlanta there, and now the gardens, we got to think differently. Look in Paris. In Paris, if you have surface parking, you pay a lot of taxes. But if you put solar panels, then you don't pay taxes anymore. Places like Santa Barbara, then if you have a special surface so that if it rains, the water goes right through, again, you get tax benefits. So we got to use technology. Of course, we're going to do a lot more deliveries using drones. But of course, we also need density. Density. I mean, if we have density, eventually everything is going to work. Public health and economic development and mobility. If we have sprawl, nothing is going to work. Nothing is going to work. So the cities should not be allowed to do one single house beyond the existing footprint. And when I'm talking about density, I'm not talking about 50-story buildings. We get the same density with these 10 different options. People hate the 50-story buildings, most people. But we can get the same density with 5 stories next to each other. Why do we need to insist in the 50? When we could have these 5 or 6-story buildings. Also, the sprawl is very expensive. When we have houses in sprawling, the cost of taking out the public service, the water, the sewage, the maintenance, is very expensive in the suburbs as compared to the downtown. Because here you are planning an architect. Well, mobility and land use are two sides of the same coin. In Melbourne, metropolitan Melbourne is going to grow. Here in Melbourne, no one walks. Why no one walks? Because there is nothing to walk to. So why would there are no ice cream shops or coffee shops? There's no public transit. So they are saying, no, let's stop sprawl and let's create public transit. It might be buses or streetcars here. And let's allow these areas to densify. Nothing in between. What happens if you densify that these 2 stories can become 5 or 6 stories? And it totally changes. All of a sudden, with 6 stories, you have the critical mass for public transit and for ice cream shops and yoga and tai chi and pottery and other kind of things. So these areas that couldn't walk anywhere, now they're going to be able to walk to places. They're going to have places to walk to. So these are the kind of things that we should do when I'm talking about. And also, when we do any building, regardless of the height, the most important is how it reaches the street. Does it build community? Is it a place? Is it improving the neighborhood? Yeah, I told you that I was a Swiftie. Imagine Taylor Swift cycling. Has she done any concerts in Prague? Not yet. She wasn't doing in Toronto. And then the Prime Minister put a tweet, please, Taylor, come to Canada. And then she said, okay, I'm going to go to Toronto. I'm going to do 6 in Toronto, in Montreal, in Vancouver. The 6 concerts in Toronto, 50,000 people, everyone, sold out in 24 hours. 300,000 people. It's incredible. But anyway, I hope she brings all her bicycles to Toronto, because that's really nice. But she not only bikes, she knows about density. Look at this.
In other towns or cities or whatever, things feel very spread out. But because of something about the New York, everything being on top of each other, like the night falls together. Like in LA, I love LA, but you have to plan out exactly what you're going to do. You have to park your car. You have to tell your friends where to meet you. Then you figure out where you're going to go next. Then you have to get organized. It seems like there's just this magic about the city where a night just falls together and then you end up somewhere else and you end up somewhere else, then you end up somewhere else. It doesn't seem like it happens that much anywhere else. London, it happens a bit.
Well, the best promoter of density. Also, in the houses, we're going to allow ADUs so that also people have a house, now their children left, it's too big, too expensive. Well, if they could subdivide the house or put an ADU on the garden or on the garage, if people could divide their houses into 2, 3, 4 units, I mean, the renovation could be amazing. Everybody wins. The owner is going to get income. The small contractors are going to get lots of work, and renters are going to have options everywhere. Also, we got to allow as of right. And all the arterials with streetcars, let's have 6 floors as of right to do this, and it would be totally transformative. And then we're going to have much better cities. And on the larger arterials, we're going to have maybe 12 floors if you have a subway or something. But we got to allow us to right and solve the housing problem. But in the shopping centers, many of them are going broke. Most of the shopping centers are going broke. Split them and allow and do a master plan of those. So, I mean, we got to solve the housing crisis everywhere there's housing crisis. But at the same time, we must create great cities. Because whatever we do or don't do is how people are going to live for hundreds of years. So if we solve the housing crisis, but we create a monster, it would be horrible. So let's create city neighborhoods. Some people say walkable city, like Jeff Speck. fantastic book on walkability. In Portland, they talk about the 20-minute city. In Paris, about the 15-minute city. In some places of Europe, they talk about the 3-minute. That is, through social media, they get together and they create book clubs and cooking classes and activities. And once a year, and how to do composting. And once a year, they have these gigantic tables and people have dinners. And in Sweden, yeah, they have Lego, so then they have the 1-minute city. Really, really nice. They develop these modules. Imagine that all of you architects have developed the modules. And then the neighbors get together and decide what do they want in front of their streets. Do they want parking? Do they want bicycle parking? Do they want trees or plants or seats or tables or whatever? And they are doing it because of public health. They want people to increase by 400% the time that people spend outside. And they assume that if the same community does it, and also they get to know the neighbors, it's going to improve. 7, let's have contact with nature at home, on the sidewalk, places of work. This could be anywhere. I mean, if you have any doubt that the trees lower the temperature, look at this. We need more trees. And now technology can be amazing to be able to do trees inventories. I mean, and the parks and the sidewalk is almost part of the family, as I was mentioned. I mean, the trees are amazing. They lower the temperature. They also reduce the rates. They clean up the air, reduce obesity, stormwater rains. I mean, also we got to do great parks. Parks are great if people visit and stay and come back. It's not if they win awards. I mean, parks are for people. Should we do small? By the way, architects, whenever you publish any book, have people, because parks are for people. When you go anywhere and you get books on parks, they are peopleless. I don't know at what time they take those photos, because there's no one in those photos. Parks are for people. Should we do small or large? Well, we can do both, because they satisfy different needs. But not only small, tiny. Imagine the tiny forest. This is amazing how people are doing this tiny forest and have such an impact and huge. Even children, imagine, they can do their own forest in their school, taking less than the space of a tennis court. So these are very, very important, and they have a huge impact. Look, this one in Chile, it was a parking lot. They turned it into a tiny forest, and look at the temperatures. From 49 degrees goes to 25 in the tiny forest. And of course, the small parks is where we meet the neighbors. We also develop solidarity, because if something is happening in our neighborhood and we know the neighbors, we go out and help. If we don't know anybody, we stay. But in the neighborhood parks, we're not going to be able to play football, so we need medium-sized parks. And we're not going to be able there to go canoeing, so we need large parks. So at the end of the day, we need a citywide park system of small, of medium, of large, active and passive and contemplative for people of all abilities. And citywide. Some are just to watch. Some people might be playing water, kayak polo, but many go by and watch. And programs. We need infrastructure, but also we need programs. Sometimes I go to the cities and it seems easier to find money to do a park, $1 million, than actually do it. I say, do you have movies in the park? Oh, we don't have money. Do you have walking groups? We don't have money. They don't have money for any programs. We need hardware, but also we need software. We need those programs. Very, very important. We need to activate the parks. And in the winter, even more, because we need to create great incentives, do walking groups, do Tai Chi, do fire pits, do all kinds of activities in the parks. It's not only infrastructure. It's also programs for people of all ages, knitting groups. This is good for mental health, for physical health, for socializing, to strengthen the neighborhoods. And keep in mind that inequality is felt most during the leisure time. So let's invest in that leisure time. And of course, everybody should have parks within walking distance. And if we don't have a park, let's think of everything that is public, the street, the school, the library. Maybe we should be creating school play streets. Keep in mind, the streets are 25% of the area of our cities. And the schools can be amazing, much more than schools. The schools could be the heart of the neighborhood. I mean, when we talk about sustainability, is that all the existing infrastructure must be used for many, many, many things. So every neighborhood has a school. So every neighborhood could have a community center. The schools could be the community hubs. Look what is happening in New York, for example. They've done over 300 of these with Trust for Public Land. This horrible pavement, then they go to the school and say, look, we're going to improve it if and only if you open it to the community after school, Saturdays, Sundays, and they turn it into this. It's amazing. It should be done everywhere. Allotment gardens, green roofs, trees, all of this. You need to decide, do you want that to have a car parking for the teachers, or do you want to have that for better spaces for the children? The schools is where we should have the farmers markets and the flower markets. Look what they're doing in Paris. They're creating in front of the school, because Mayor Hidalgo wants Paris to be green. They are greening the schools, healthy school streets. They are transforming. Where they were cars, now they are trees. And it's closed. Initially, they started doing it only from 7 to 4. And they said, why don't we do it permanent so we can do something better? 80%, they have done 450. 80% are permanent, like this. So they do the design, and then they go out and build it. 450, because they want to be green. That's part of the answer to your question of the cave that I'm going to finish in a minute, is focus on the benefits. In Paris, they care about green. So school streets, the mayor says, is because we want to be green. In London, people are obsessed with the quality of the air that is very bad. So it's not because they're going to plant trees. It's because they're going to have, because when people drop off the kids in front of the school, the classrooms that are near the drop-off area, the air is poisoned for 2.5 hours. So they said, okay, no more. Same program, make the street in front of the schools, and in London they're going further and making a bigger area. But again, it's not only hardware. The mayor of London saw few kids were doing physical activity, so he created the London Mile. The London Mile, and they have a school recess of 15 minutes in the morning. They said, oh no, let's make it 25 minutes. And every school in London during that recess, all the kids go out walking or running 1 mile. And the mayor, every week he goes with someone else, with athletes and actors, with leaders. And so it's not only the hardware, it's the software. In Canada, with 880, we're doing some schools. I mean, the schools should be the heart of the neighborhood. It should be kind of like the capital of the neighborhood. People say, oh, it's difficult. Well, in everything that when people say difficult, remember what Nelson Mandela said. He said, it always seems impossible until it's done. Until it's done. Imagine going to the school and all of a sudden dancing with strangers in the schools.
They were dancing to the music vibe, and the boys just the girls with the curls in their hair, while the shouting men who just sit way over there. The songs they get louder, each one better than before. And you're singing the songs, thinking this is life. And you wake up in the morning and your head feels twisted sides. Where you gonna go? Where you gonna go?
Prague, you can do all of that and better. You can do it much better. And the last message is that we gotta change. I mean, it's very clear. Why don't we change? Because change is hard. Because change, as I said before, most the people that show up are the ones that are against it. Because doing more of the same is easy. So when you have re-elections, many politicians don't want to change. The easiest way to get re-elected is do nothing. More of the same, maybe a little bit better, but don't rock the boat. No, but you gotta be the change. I mean, change is not unanimous. It's not unanimous. So when they say, oh, there is some concern, there will always be concern. Second, the public good must prevail over the particular interest. And third, the cost of doing nothing is not nothing. It's very, very, we gotta change. We have an amazing opportunity and responsibility to do what is right, not to do what is easy. Let's focus on the people, so let's focus on benefits. So all of these things that we have been talking about, they are really good for culture, for education, for whatever. So whatever your community values, frame it around that, because all of that is good. And then we need to do things different. Keep in mind that how cities are built is the most important decision of our time. One of the things that we have missed the boat is make all of these changes to be left, be progressive. Oh, it's the socialist, it's the left. It's ridiculous. Has nothing to do with the left. It could be the right. We should come to an agreement. We should not allow that, oh, if the right-wing government wins, then they're going to take away all of the bike lanes. Like that happened in Spain. In Spain, the left was in power. They did a lot of bike lanes in the cities, but they frame it as a left issue. It has nothing to do with left. If we want to have people not killed on the streets, that doesn't happen. When a driver is killing someone, doesn't say, hey, wait, are you left or right? No, they're killing. So we should have an agreement on the what. Let's have safe streets. Let's plant trees. Let's have parks. Maybe there's a difference on the how. Maybe if you are left, maybe you want to plant the trees with unionized workers. Maybe if you are right wing, you want to plant the trees with private sector. But that's the how, not the what. The what, let's be. So we got to do, and I want to end with this doing. We need these 5 elements, the sense of urgency. I mean, we got to change the conversation. Climate change is here. We see it everywhere. We see the symptoms at the city level, at the personal level. Even if some still don't want to believe on it, we need to change. We need to decide. I mean, 20 years ago, we were not even talking about it. It's like football. Maybe 20 years ago, we were playing outside. We were not even on the field. Now we are on the field. We're learning how to pass the ball around, but we are not scoring goals. If the ball doesn't cross the line, we don't score the goal. So now we are talking about it, but we have to score the goals. And how do we score the goals? Moving from talking to doing. From talking to doing. For example, in the U.S., more than 100 million people do not have a park within walking distance. And now the best organizations, gigantic, they got together, national parks and trust and all of this, and say, oh, we're going to do it by 2050. I said, oh, what, are you crazy? It's for today's children. It's not for their grandchildren. Let's do it, but let's do it by 2030. 2, we got to have political will and guts. This is Milano. Beautiful promenades are being totally encroached by cars. So you can do this or you can do this. It's totally different if you want the promenades to be for the cars or if you want them to be for people. Because this is also about developing public neighborhoods, friendship and solidarity and safety. I mean, working in Oslo with the vice mayor, look at, by the way, Oslo is very hilly. When the first time I rode an e-bike was in Oslo. The mayor invited me on a ride, and then she said, Gil, have you been on an e-bike? I said, no. She said, oh, it's very dangerous, because if you ride one, you will never go back. Actually, I did go back. I never got an e-bike. But we went on a bike ride. It was great. But this other one is the deputy mayor. She made the downtown Oslo car-free. Tirana, who would have thought that Tirana, the mayor of Tirana, Elion Verria, he has transformed this city. I would have never thought that I was going to talk about him and Anne Hidalgo on the same day, and it's amazing what, I mean, she has us confused. Anne Hidalgo, we see these photos and we think it's Copenhagen, and no, it's Paris. 3, we got to have leadership for elected officials, but also it can be city staff, it can be citizens, and the leaders, people look up to them. Even how they dress, working with the mayor of Toyama, I remember he told me, he said, El Gil, we need to relax the dress code. If people want to wear high heels, great, but it should not be expected. If men want to wear ties, fine, but not expected. So he wears a little tie on his coat. Look what Copenhagen, remember that I showed you, is the chief architect, the one who did all of those changes of density. It wasn't a politician. It was under many different mayors. Melbourne, 30 years ago, would not have been in the top 300 cities. It was horrible. Even they made fun of themselves, a useless city center. What did he do? They put art all over the city. Art, that people can take photos and see it. And next, planted trees. All of the streets were without any trees. They put trees, and it totally changed. Amazing. The temperature. Many neighborhoods have gone down the temperature by 8 or 10 degrees. Citywide, like 4 degrees. No one wanted to live in Melbourne. Of course, now everybody wants to live in Melbourne. 4, we need participation. We need participation, like the African proverb. If you want to go fast, go along. If you want to go far, go together. Might be a little bit slower, but when you invite people, it's more permanent, because then that administration goes away, but there are citizens that will pressure the following administration to stay. We do a lot of community engagement with children. For example, we get groups of 30 children divided up in tables of 5 kids, and then 1 computer, and then we go to the parks and we take photos, and then they come back and then they do the visioning of the park. And now people say, oh, everybody wants proximity. 15-minute city was discovered 5 years ago. 500 years ago. 15 years ago, I was in Mexico in a very poor area, and I did a workshop with kids, and I asked
When
them,
we see change ahead, it's always nice to talk to the children. And almost everywhere I go around the world, I try to talk to the children. Here we ask them, why don't you draw? How would you like your community to be like when you are your parents' age and you have children of your own age? And look at Edgar, for example. Edgar said that he wanted fewer people in cars and more people walking and more people cycling. And then he drew an area for pedestrians, for cyclists, for buses, and for cars. He's only 13, but he knows that if we mix pedestrians and cyclists, the pedestrian gets injured. If we mix cyclists and buses and cars, the cyclist gets injured. So each one needs a separate space. And then he drew public parks and low buildings with street level activity.
Edgar just summarized Urban Planning 101 in one drawing. So when you're going to do placemaking, when you're going to do engagement, it's very, very important to honestly want to listen to the citizens, because usually it's tokenism. We need to listen to the citizens. And if I ask my daughter, what do you do in this park? She's going to say, oh, let's do yoga. And in this, oh, let's do more yoga. I said, daughter, not everybody wants to do yoga. Some people might want to do fire pits. Some people might want to do pizza ovens. Let's ask people, what is it that they want? And they're going to tell us when we're doing placemaking. Let's go to the community and start with a blank page. The community is the expert on the what. Go to with a blank page. Say, we got this parking lot, we're going to do a park. What would you like? But sometimes people just go with everything already done. Don't go ask the community, not the architects, not the planners. Then you invite in the second phase the architects and the planners. And you say, this is what the community, maybe the community says, I want to go walking. But they don't know if it should be 2 meters or 3 or 4. It should be an oval or a spaghetti, what kind of surface, whatever. The planners and the architects do know. And then you get how to manage it and so on. And last, we need doers. Yeah, some people want to be mayors, some people want to be commissioners, want to be planners, want to be directors in the city. Very few want to do us. That's a big problem, that they just want to be. And when they are, the easiest way to stay is don't rock the boat. No, we need to do activities. For example, I want to show an example in Bogota when my brother was mayor. When he was mayor, he realized he couldn't change all of the homes in the short term, but he could change all of the public space in 4 years. And then his focus was how to create everything is public. There were 400 illegal neighborhoods he legalized so that he could invest in those and put water and electricity. Only 80% of the people had sewage and water. At the end, 99.5% had it. Built 280 kilometers of protected bike lanes all over the city. Some neighborhoods that are so poor that it's almost impossible for you in Prague to imagine the level of poverty. And look at how this is transformed when you do really good sidewalks and bike lanes. And then you plant trees according to the microclimates, and you put benches and lights and things. Look, there was not even pavement for the car. There is not money for everything. So either you put the pavement for the car or you put the walking and cycling. This is as good as any bike lane anywhere in the world, and it's in one of the extreme poverty areas that is done. So these are the kind of things. Well, he also did 67 schools in most of the poor areas. He couldn't change all of the houses, but he could change everything that was public and making sure that these schools, all of them would be open Saturdays, Sundays, in the evenings for family activities. And again, I'm showing this on Bogota is because Bogota is very poor. It's decades behind Prague. So if Bogota can do this, obviously you can do many times better, and fights on the issues of the sidewalks and also putting lights on the fields, which really improves safety. We can talk about later. Even when he was doing the BRT, even the World Bank was going to fund the DMV. It was like a subway, but above ground. This was what the transportation system used to look like. The first line was done in 36 months. And this first line moves more people than 90% of the subways of the world. And then, of course, the option was do one subway line or do a citywide BRT system. And then so those are just some examples of the BRT. Especially in areas like Latin America, where it's the biggest gap between the have and the have-nots, this is really a symptom. For the first time ever, the people that took public transit were able to get to places faster than people that were. It was kind of like democracy right on your face. I mean, keep in mind, there's not going to be a Martian coming down to make sustainable, equitable, and playful Prague. It's up to all of you to do it. What if we don't change at all and something magical happens? No, nothing magical happens. It's up to you. It's up to you. So we got to do things right, but we also got to do the right things. So I just want to end by saying, think of one activity in patience and orchids. You can do it between you. You can do it with the communities, the neighbors. What are the impatiens? These flowers that are very inexpensive. And orchids, obviously much more expensive. Impatiens are things that we can even do a little bit at the end if we have 10 minutes. Impatiens, you can do now, in the next 12 months. Low cost, low risk, and high visibility. Orchids, maybe you need to change the law. Maybe you need to approve budgets, whatever. Then things that you're going to do in 2 to 4 years. And then you work with the citizens. They're going to come up with great ideas. I mean, examples of impatience. Maybe you're going to do playgrounds, or you are going to do skateboard parks, or you're going to do programs in the winter with the kids going biking to school at minus 25 degrees. And I mean, there are many things that you can think of that you can do that are low cost, low risk. By the way, keep an attitude that there is no such thing as bad weather, it's bad clothing. This was raining like crazy, all the kids playing like if nothing was happening. It was magical moments everywhere or doing, but always keep equity in mind, which is so absolutely. So, not technical, not financial. It's about vision. It's about actions. Be bold and create a Prague that is sustainable, equitable, and playful, where everybody lives healthier and happier. So let's do it. But now, thank you. Okay, now we have time for questions or for comments from anybody.
So, anyone? If you will raise your hand.
In the meantime, while you are thinking
yes.
of questions, think of impatience. Think of impatience, and then I'm going to ask you, we don't live, or at least I don't live until you tell me 10 impatience for Prague.
We have a question?
I'm gonna give you an example. The other day I was in a city, and someone said, oh, when I'm walking home, the sidewalk is very dark. And I said, yeah, but the sidewalk putting lights is not low cost. And she said, oh, it's very low cost because when I'm walking, the sidewalk is very dark, but the street is very well lit. And the street don't need so much light because the cars have lights. So she said, all I'm asking is for someone to go up on the ladder and turn 90 degrees the light, and now half for the street, half for the sidewalk. She said, it's the same post, the same cable, the same light. Since she told me that about 10 years ago, every time I go to cities, more than 90% of the streets are very well lit, and 90% of the sidewalks are very dark. So these are ideas that you can come up for Prague. What will you do? Low cost, low risk, high visibility. You said there was a question? Yes.
Hello, my name is Shimon. I have a question regarding shared space. You said in your presentation you think pedestrians and cars and buses and
Excuse me,
cyclists
about shared space, what else?
should be separated. And what do you think about the concept of shared space where they are all joined together and there is no separation between cars and pedestrians and cyclists and they just all have to respect each other? Do you like it, or do you think it's just...
Sorry, I didn't hear.
If you like the idea of shared space, if it's possible to share space with cyclists, cars, and pedestrians,
Shared
for
space,
example,
no,
or if you would like to
No, I don't
separate
like
them.
the word shared space. Shared space doesn't exist. It's a bad name. You can have pedestrian space where you allow other ins on the terms of the pedestrian. But it's not, sometimes when you call it a shared space, everybody comes in their own terms. So I'm a walker, I go walk at 5 kilometers. Then the cyclist comes by at 20 kilometers. Then the car comes by at 30 kilometers. No. If you're going to have that shared space, it's a pedestrian area that allows other modes. So say cyclist, you can come, but at 5 kilometers. Car, if you live here or you need to do a delivery, you can come, but at 5 kilometers an hour. So that is a possibility. Obviously, small streets, small areas, and mix, but on the terms of the, always has to be the most vulnerable, has to be the least common denominator. In that case of sharing modes, is the person that walks. So it is fine, it works, but on those terms, not everyone in their own terms. No, everyone in the terms of the most vulnerable.
And is the way when you decrease the limit for 30 kilometers per hour, is it possible to share space with bikes and cars when you decrease the limit for 30 kilometers per hour? Is it safety?
Well, if you lower the speed in the neighborhoods, then you can share cars and bikes. If you have 30 kilometers an hour, but you need to enforce it. How to enforce it? Put humps, 2 humps in every block, narrow the road diets in the street corners. Yeah, so on the arterials, you need a dedicated, physically protected bike lane. But on the neighborhoods, you can share that. Yes. And also lowering the speed, a lot more people come out and, for example, socialize more. When you are walking and the cars are going at 40 or 50, no one talks to anybody. You walk really, really fast. When it's low, people chat. Someone is coming with their dog and they say, oh, what kind of dog and whatever. More people walk, more people socialize. So it's really, really important.
We have another question there.
Hi.
Anybody?
Yeah, we have
Yes.
question.
Yeah,
there.
here's a question.
There.
Where?
Yeah.
Okay.
My name is Carrie. I'm from Boston, Massachusetts. And a lot of the networks that you were showing were in cities where there's many grids. The layouts are grids, which makes it really easy, I think, to put in these strategies of separate lanes for separate types of transit. Boston, for example, is not very regular. I'm curious if you've seen successful projects in cities like that.
What was the last part?
I'm curious if you've seen successful projects, successful changes in cities that are irregular, like Boston.
Successful projects in cities.
In cities like Boston.
Projects of what?
Public transportation and networks specifically.
Oh, many cities. Well, you need to have that network. You need to have that transportation. When I was talking about the chicken and the egg, is because sometimes I go to cities and public transit, they say, oh, not many people are riding, so then we stop at 8 o'clock at night. Or we don't do it on Sundays, or we do every hour. No, if it's not frequent, if it's not connected, if it's not, then it doesn't work. Once you do it, then people start using it. And yes, there are many, many examples. Things like in Paris, the network of cyclists that the mayor is doing is physically separated from the cars. And as soon as they did it, like they said, oh, Paris, oh, we're not Vikings, we're not Danish. Well, that wasn't it. They didn't have the network. And then it totally changes. Places like Seville, Spain. In Seville, Spain, no one biked, 0.6%. But it was because they only had 3 bike lanes not connected in the middle of nowhere. And they say, oh, no, it's because it's too hot in the summer. It's because we love cars. No. One day there was 2 governments got 49% and 49%. And the Green Party got 2%. So he said, I will support whoever builds 150 kilometers in 4 years. And one said they did it and went from 0.6 to 7.6. Huge. Imagine in Prague it's at 2%. This is 7.6. And now they want to go to 15%. So once you do the network of public transit, you do the networks of cycling, it clicks immediately. But if you don't do the networks, it will not work. Yes.
Thank you.
Hello, I have the question. What I was thinking about, it's you are centered on the people in your approach, and that means that in this focus, the actual state of cities, or what was before, was this sectorial division between specialists on traffic, on other issues. And if you go with these easy goals that are understandable for everybody, behind is this need also of the structural change of work together, change the institution to be more complex, more holistic, to have people in the center in their attention. And you see in these cities that already implemented this kind of policies also these changes behind these structural changes of from more sectorial, expert-based systems to more holistic approach to the people. Because it's difficult to explain it, but it's this way I see it much more better to talk to politics, but behind you also need to do big changes.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think more than a question was a comment. But before everybody leaves, tell me, in patience, what would you do if you were mayor of Prague? What would you do? What that is low cost, low risk, and high visibility. What this is important because this gives you credibility. This gives you oxygen to do things. So what would you do? Low cost, low risk, high visibility. Anybody?
Any ideas?
We need 10 ideas that you could implement. I mean, I had about 150 ideas. Anything, by the way, it's not about copying and pasting. Sometimes the cities, no, but cities need to be more generous. Sometimes cities forget that the public sector is very different than the private. If I'm in the private sector and I do clickers and I have 20% of the market and I want to have 23, someone has to lose 3 for me to gain 3. Not in the public sector. The other day I was in a city that did a beautiful skateboard park. And I said, wow, it's really nice. I know another city that is doing a skateboard park. Can you lend them the design? They said, lend them? We paid for it. I said, you didn't pay. It was taxes. And you already used it. I said, lend it to them. I said, in the public sector, if you do a skateboard park the same, this one doesn't have to get any bad for this one to get any better. So we should share the cities, be very generous. We can learn from what both the good things to adapt and improve, as well as the bad to avoid. So let's be generous and copy from Copenhagen and Paris and whatever. Yes, the mic here. Okay, say it loud, and it's 10. This is the number 10.
Yeah, I would plant a lot of trees and put more green into the public spaces because I think we are surrounded a lot by buildings. And actually, my mental health, I think, struggles because I only see these gray big buildings and I don't see a lot of trees. So I would do this.
Okay, 9. Who's next? There was someone right here. Yeah.
I would directly talk to people.
You would do?
I would directly talk to people. Like for me, it's very important to have that connections with people and describe that diseases, like go into minds of people and directly like going through that old problems, like dealing with them. Because it's
critical, most important, honestly talk to people of all ages, on all abilities, on different places. Okay, 8.
Okay, another one?
8 here.
Who has an idea?
I would increase the parking fees, maybe 20-fold, 20 times higher price for parking in the public space.
Okay, 7.
Another one?
Here, we have 2 here.
Honestly, I like Prague because I'm coming from small city, and if I want to walk in my small city, I need to do circle 20 times. So in the nice area. I like it in the center of the Prague, but it's unfortunately smelly from the cars. So first, little bit decrease of traffic, because it's already beautiful. And second, I found many like beautiful particles or islands which are small park or something, but there is nothing in between. So you don't want to go there because you are considering, I will take a bus or how can I go there? So these places are not connected. So if we architects can somehow connect it, I will support it.
Excellent. And you are right. We need to build on whatever we have. Yeah, it's beautiful, but okay, how can we build on good things? Maybe there are good events in some activity. So how can we build if they're already having a festival or something, and it's only one day, how do we make it one weekend? If it's one weekend, how do we do 2 weekends so it becomes a 10-day? So let's piggyback on things that are already working.
Hi. Thanks for your talk. It was very inspirational. I think since I have 2 little kids, my perception of the city has changed dramatically, because it is slightly different when you move on high heels and you go to work to when you're trying to push the pram and dragging your other kid through people and cars. So I think the small changes that would make my life easier would be, of course, the trees and other things, but less cars, and have them, or at least have the 30 kilometers per hour in residential zones, which is where I live at the moment, but I think the cars drive 50 at the moment. Have the speed bumps. When you cross the road and you have the green light, make the period where the green light is on longer, because at the moment it's about 7 seconds to cross the road, which is not enough for me and the kids to cross the road safely. And then when I try to inquire and ask at the local municipal who built a whole new area that is fancy looking, I ask if they can make it longer, because old people can't cross on time and it's really difficult. They say it is our law, and they said that this is the maximum that they can have, 7 seconds. So I think it would be that, and also the lights, point them at the streets, because as a woman I don't feel safe sometimes going home, even though I live in the center. So yeah, maybe more than one. Sorry.
Wolf, you're totally right. Okay, we got 4. Before you leave, give us 1. Anybody has any idea? We got 4, and then we are done. Okay, here's 1. Think about others. We got 3 more to go.
I really like community gardens, and I think community gardens could be a good place for meeting people and spreading more green, more trees, and also making some local, super local, just for a few buildings. So I would support community gardening.
Community gardens are amazing community builders. People help each other and get to know each other, and it's really, really nice. Okay, last 2. Here's 1. Someone think of the last one.
I've got 1 more. It's like showing yourself, like being that person who is just showing sustainable tourism. And I guess it's the best way to show people around that that it's a good way. It's the way which worth, and like being yourself, showing that Prague is needed to be sustainable. So it's like, for me, it's the best decision which can do everything from us. Like.
Great, and the last one. Anybody? Yeah, here. Oh, it's 2, so it's 1 and then 0.
I would say more events in public spaces, not, for example, only when the hockey team becomes the world champion, but maybe every week or once a month, big events where people can gather in the important public spaces of the city.
Yeah, I love that what you said, that every week. And more than events, programs, because sometimes cities invest a lot of money on the Independence Day, on the New Year's Day, and then all the money goes from one day, and it doesn't really have that benefit. But instead, if it's weekly or daily or every other day, so try to have programs that have consistency, and they have so much more benefit than that. I totally agree. It's really, really important. And the last one.
I think the way how to reach these goals, like cycling in the cities, we live in an age of marketing, and it's everywhere. You can see commercials everywhere. So the way is use it. Use the same weapon. You can see commercials for cars, new cars, buy this car, this is better. But you cannot see commercials for cycling. And there's another way how to increase amount of cyclists in the city. Cooperation with renting companies companies which are renting bicycles in the city. So you can do some sale, some discount instead of, you can prevent traffic jam. You can say, okay, we can offer you this renting bicycle for special price in this time, and you can prevent traffic jams just with this small discount in this time. So I think, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. I think that if you do that exercise in over 3 hours and you have groups of people working on tables, it works really, really nice. And when you do groups with people, try not to do more than 5 people on a table. Usually 3 to 5. When it's 3 to 5, everybody participates. When it's more than 5, 2 participate and everybody else listens. So do those and let people think first of impatience. You might even ask for topics. Just walkability for an hour, or just bikeability, or mobility in general, and then another one in public spaces, or another one in programs. And then people are going to come with wonderful, lots of ideas. The other day I was doing it in Boulder, in Colorado, and then someone had a great idea and said, when the cars come out of the intersections, the drivers only look to the left. And then they don't know the people that are coming on the sidewalk. And actually today I saw a horrible thing on the sidewalk, a truck coming out of a gas station, and there was a little kid on a bicycle coming on the sidewalk and hit him. And because people go up to the street, so someone had the idea, said, what if we forced in all the private driveways out of a bank or a restaurant or whatever, they need to put a stop sign before the sidewalk. And the cars have to stop before the sidewalk, or they get a ticket for the same value that if they had gone through a red light. Because the cars go and they stop next to the pavement on the street, and they look only to the left to see which cars are coming. No, now they gotta stop before the sidewalk and look both ways, so the pedestrian became very visible. So there are lots of great ideas. So I wanna thank all of you for having come. I know that all of you had many different options of things to do. I wanna thank you for having me here. It's been great.
I'm just an idiot.
And I wish you all the best. I think that you do have a great city, but this is a process of continuous improvement. You cannot become complacent, and you gotta think that it can be better in many, many ways. So thank you.
I thank you very much, because you squeezed in the whole actual debate about urbanism in 2 hours lecture. So thank you very much. It was very refreshing, and I hope we will have a chance to talk about development of Prague in future in person again.
Thank you. Have a good night.